Hi, I'm Emma. I live and work in Silicon Valley, the tech capital of the world. What I love about technology is that it makes everything easier. It gives us what we want whenever we want it. We use it to simplify so many aspects of life: communicating, shopping, even dating. And I'm glad for that because let's face it, dating could always be easier. You might think it's old-fashioned or maybe even naive of me, but I still believe in soulmates. The idea that there's someone out there who's perfect for me? Hey, I'm an optimist. But the question is, how do we find that person? As optimistic as I am, I'm also a realist. See, Silicon Valley is all about solving problems. That's what we do all day in the startup world. We analyze problems and come up with solutions. And if you're going to be realistic about the problem of love, finding the one seems pretty unlikely, doesn't it? How many guys are out there? Well, let's see. There are almost 8 billion people on the planet, and half of those are male. So we're talking about almost 4 billion guys. But we don't have to count all the ones who are already taken, of course, or the ones who are too old for me, or too young. And I suppose we could also leave out the ones who live all the way out in Sri Lanka or Papua New Guinea or some other faraway place I'd never go to. So, yes, I'm an optimist, but I'm what you'd call a realistic optimist. In fact, if we're going to be super realistic about this, we're really only talking about all the single guys in the Bay Area, right? Which is roughly 2 million. That seems a lot more manageable than 4 billion. But finding the one out of 2 million, that's still a needle in a haystack situation. But as Elon Musk says, when something is important enough, you do it even if the odds are not in your favor. And so I was determined to find my person, but I knew I needed all the help I could get. To increase my chances, I, of course, used technology and got on all of the dating apps. I met some interesting guys that way, and a lot of not so interesting guys. I immediately knew I wanted to go out with this guy, Dean, because he checked off all the boxes on my list. That's right, I got a list. I mean, don't you? Jeff Bezos says that before you can make something happen, you have to envision it first. That's why I write down all the things I want to accomplish at my job. And it works. So I thought, why wouldn't I do the same with my love life? That's why I had decided on all the things I was looking for in a partner. I wanted my guy to be smart, kind, successful, handsome, and it also wouldn't hurt if he was tall. I had a bunch of other things on my list too, like fashionable and knows how to drive stick, and treats his mama well. I figured it was better to be specific. And if I could just find the guy who had all these qualities, then I'd know I'd found the one. Dean was tall. Check. He went to an Ivy League school. Wow. Check. And he had a great job. Check, check, and check. He even had great style. With the power of the internet, I'd met someone who fulfilled all of the things on my list. He was super nice too. Total package, right? That's what I thought. At first. Dean picked me up and took me on a really nice dinner date. He looked great, smelled great, and the food was amazing. He was perfect. In fact, maybe he was too perfect. He always said the right thing, and he was always so proper and formal. Actually, when I'm talking to Dean, it feels like I'm at a job interview. He'd even ask me about my job history and about school. He asked me other things too, like if I had brothers or sisters, and where I was from, blah, blah, blah. Honestly, dating Dean got real boring real quick. Dean was perfect, all right, but only on paper. So, was it my list that was the problem? Maybe it was incomplete somehow. You see, Dean was too nice and too bland. And I think that's why I was so taken with this other guy I met, Luke. In a lot of ways, you could say Luke was the opposite of Dean. Luke dropped out of school, wore a leather jacket, and he definitely never said the right thing. He always rode this cool motorcycle, which was pretty hot, I'm not gonna lie. I'd ride around everywhere with Luke on the back of his motorcycle. It felt like we were in one of those biker gangs. Except Luke said he'd never join a biker gang because he called himself a lone wolf. Since Luke was the furthest thing from buttoned up and proper, he'd do and say things all the time that rubbed people the wrong way. Whenever someone had a problem with him, he'd just put on his sunglasses and go, "Who cares, man?" And if anyone didn't like the way he did things, he'd flip on the bird. Luke didn't seem to care what people thought of him, and I thought that was kind of hot too, at first. Turns out Luke so didn't care what other people thought, it made him kind of a jerk. Like, he'd cut people off in traffic. He was bad at listening, and he was always super late to everything, including our dates. One time, he was over an hour and a half late, and he didn't explain or even apologize. When I asked him what took him so long, he just put on his sunglasses and said, "Traffic, babe." But it was as if he was really saying, "Whatever, man." Even though that's not what he said, I couldn't help but hear it in my head. Luke's whole rebel vibe had gotten really annoying, really fast. So that's when I told him he was rude. I could tell Luke really wanted to do his thing again, where he puts on his sunglasses and says his dumb catchphrase, but he already had his sunglasses on. And I think this annoyed him because we went at each other a little bit. After a couple back and forths, he said I was the one being rude. Then he hopped on his bike and rode off without saying goodbye. Luke had come off like he was always so cool and unbothered by everything, but I guess it turns out he's actually very easily bothered. All you had to do is call him out on his rudeness. I was starting to get discouraged. I thought I knew what I was looking for. Things didn't seem very promising. But remember, I'm an optimist, so I kept trying. I ripped up my list and decided to start over. That's when Jordan started bugging me about what I was working on. Jordan's one of my nerdy coworkers at the startup. He can be kinda nosy. I told him it was none of his beeswax, but if he had to know, I was writing down all the qualities I wanted in my soulmate. I was fully expecting him to make fun of me, and he did. I would have found this super rude, except I knew Jordan's weird sense of humor. We like to tease each other. He's actually pretty funny, but boy, does he get under my skin sometimes. He and I seem to disagree on pretty much everything. Now, I know what you're thinking. How come Jordan and I never got together? Well, for starters, we work together. I'm super into my job, and my goal is to one day follow in the steps of the big Silicon Valley entrepreneurs I admire so much. Also, Jordan and I are just too different. For example, I'm an optimist, but Jordan is super pessimistic. Obviously, he didn't believe the things that I believed. I asked him, if you don't believe in soulmates, what do you believe? He said he believed that there were no easy answers and that there isn't only one perfect person out there waiting to cross paths with you. That's when our boss called Jordan to a meeting, so he had to run. Jordan seemed to have such different ideas than I did about love, and that made me curious. I wanted to know more, so I caught up with him after work. It was Friday, so a bunch of people at our office were going to a happy hour, including Jordan, so I decided to go with him. When we got to the bar, we sat together and continued our conversation. I asked, so then what do you believe true love looks like? Jordan thought about this for a second. Then he said, I think relationships are constant work. They're a lot more difficult and a lot less glamorous than most of us want to believe. That's what I believe, he said. That sounded pretty depressing. I told Jordan he really was a pessimist. Then he said, I actually think of myself as an optimist. A realistic optimist. I laughed. Jordan asked what was so funny, and I told him that's what I called myself, a realistic optimist. Maybe Jordan and I had more in common than I thought. As we talked, we found out that we did have more in common. A lot more. We liked a lot of the same movies and the same music, and he even said he went through a phase where he liked girls who drove stick shift. I told him mine wasn't a phase. I still liked guys who drove manual cars. I told him, so you know how to drive stick, huh? I had no idea. He said, oh, no, I don't know how to drive stick. If I did, I wouldn't be so impressed by it, now would I? In a weird way that I don't really quite know how to describe, Jordan made me laugh. We had such a great conversation. We had stayed at the bar talking all night until it closed. Afterwards, he walked me home. When we got to my doorstep, we both felt something. There was an energy between us that was never there before. That's when he asked if I wanted to go out on a date sometime. A proper one. I never in a million years would have thought that Jordan would ever ask me out, let alone that I would say yes. But I did. Anyway, fast forward to now. Jordan and I have been together for a year. We just had our first anniversary, which is Valentine's Day. It was around then that we decided to become a couple. So I picked Valentine's as our anniversary date because it's romantic. But Jordan says he picked it so that he didn't have to remember 2 different dates. We still don't agree on everything. Steve Jobs once said that if Henry Ford were to have asked his customers what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. Because the truth is, people don't know what they want until you show it to them. What are you looking for in love? And are you open to being surprised? Tell us. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more hidden wisdom stories. Remember, when you share our stories, you're sharing wisdom.